The gospel is written in the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 15 to 20. If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault, just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over. But if he will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. If he refuses to listen even to the church, treat him as you would a pagan or a tax collector. I tell you the truth. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything, you ask for it, it will be done by you, my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there am I with them. The word of the Lord in the house of the Lord. One of the things that happen is when you start thinking too far ahead, you get yourself in trouble. And I found that out so many times. But one of the things I'm thinking about is about 22 years ago, we learned a lesson. That was a terrible lesson for us to learn. 9/11. We lost thousands, hundreds of people. The world was in a panic. Did we learn from it, or are we just putting up with it? It's a strange world that we live in today. It's not going to be like the Second World War, where we sent ships and men and guns overseas. We have to worry now because it is so easy to reach each continent with all of these terrible missiles and things that we have. Extremists changed our world. The world is not at peace. We cannot relax. We cannot have somebody else looking out for us. Too many people want what we have. And what we have is extremely rare in this world. And it has been ever since we founded this country. And people in the world all over want this. Proof of that is how many thousands and millions have crossed our southern border, going through and walking miles and miles and miles to reach our shores and to wade across that river and to come into this land. You know, we think we've learned something, but we didn't learn as much as we should have. You know, today in our scripture, we're talking about the Passover. This was the Egyptians' 9/11. This was them putting up a terrible fight against the Israeli people and treating them like dirt, making them sweat and whipping them and cheating them and doing everything they could to make them miserable because they were afraid that the Israelites were going to become stronger than they were. And they had to find a way of weakening them. It took God a long time to make up his mind. A long time. 400 years. In his mind, a second. But what did he do? He told them how to prepare. He told them that something was happening. He was going to free them. He was going to get them out of Egypt. He told them how to take a lamb or a small goat, a perfect one, and to roast it. Not boil it, roast it, because they couldn't cook it fast enough that way. And when they ate it, they were to eat all of it. They were not to let anything go to waste. If there was any leftovers, they were to burn them up in the fire. And he told them Eat fast. Be quick. Because I'm sending the angel of death over you. And if your house is not properly marked with the blood in the corners, you too will suffer. Because I am going to kill all the firstborn in Egypt. Not only the people, the animals, the birds, everything. The firstborn will die tonight. That occasion is still honored by the Israelites, the Israeli people, as the Passover. Of course, the Passover doesn't come at this time of year. Passover is early in spring, around the Easter time. But his examples of what was going to happen and how to handle it were as clear as day. And he's telling us right now to prepare ourselves. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring us. He freed the Israelites. But that wasn't all that he needed to do. You know, along with that, I'm going to make a mess again. Along with that, this ledge is a little small. Along with that, we had to yeah. Is this like an Abbott and Costello joke? My goodness. Along with all of the things that he did for us, along with all of the wonderful things he did for us, we have to remember that Jesus is the center and the heart of this world. He came to us, and God gave us Jesus as a living example that we should follow. He taught that this was the way to go. And we didn't learn. We still didn't learn. He took the Israelites and he marched them all over the deserts for 40 years before he let them settle down. 40 years. And when they got to the land that he had promised them, they still hadn't learned everything that they needed to know. They just couldn't get it. So Jesus came to us, and what does he do? He brings us together, and he says, you will follow the commandments my Father has given you. You will follow the commandments my Father has given you. That's not easy to do. But in one word that he gave us in Jesus Christ, the one word that he stands for is love. He said, if you have love in your heart, if you have love in your ear, in your breast, then you don't need the 10 Commandments. You don't have to have the 10 Commandments, because those 10 Commandments all explain what love is. And if you have that love, then you don't have to worry. I kind of laugh because Jesus and God are like mom and dad. Dad and mom, put it that way. God was dad, and he dished out the punishment, and he gave the law. He said the word, you will do it. You will do it, or you are going to be punished. And it got to the point where he just couldn't keep punishing the world anymore. I mean, he punished how many people? The Israelites, the Philistines, Sodom and Gomorrah. How many wars did he start and end? And he didn't want to do that anymore. So he sent us Jesus. And Jesus was kind of like mom. Gosh, you did it wrong. You shouldn't have done that. You know, come here and I'll give you a hug and I'll give you a little kiss and tell you that's okay, but don't do it again. Isn't that how Jesus works? Isn't that how Jesus says, listen, I'll forgive you. I'll give you that opportunity. We know you're going to make a mistake. sometimes things happen. I was little. I was about 6 or 7. And my brother and I and a couple of other kids were playing soccer, well, actually hockey, in the front yard of our house with baseball bats and a round rubber ball. And we were hitting them back and forth. And I wound up and I swung, and the bat flew out of my hand and went right through the picture window. Wait till your father gets home. Oh, God. I don't know. I was very upset, obviously. 6 or 7-year-old to put out the picture window. I went into my room and climbed up on my bunk. I had the top bunk, and I went to sleep. And nobody could find me. And I was glad. But no, not true. But as it turned out, the picture window had many small panes in it. And I broke one pane. Went right through. And by the time they found me and got me up, Dad had already fixed it. So my punishment was really let's don't do it again. You're not going to play soccer in the front yard again. Okay. And that was it. Mom kind of smoothed it all over. Dad fixed the window. And she didn't give him all the little details that could have probably got me a good spanking. But these things do happen with children. We're kids. We're God's children. We're fighting that every day. But Jesus was God's messenger to clean up his reputation. He had a reputation for being an angry God. And at many times when he was founding this world and putting us all together, he was an angry God. Even King David, he was Jesus' choice. Jesus picked him to lead this revolt and this freedom. Yet he fought so many wars and killed so many people that when he wanted to build this temple to God, God said, no, you can't build it. You've killed too many people. There have been too many wars, too much bloodshed under your reign. There will come a man who will be able to do that. And that person was Solomon, David's son. He ruled when the world was at peace. And all eyes were directed toward him and watching him and his success. But even giving us Jesus, it wasn't quite enough. We had to learn. So we keep doing it. We have to remain fearful to God. He can still change his mind, and he's been known to do that. He's been changing his mind now and again for a long time. And sometimes when he changes his mind, he says, okay, we're going to forget that. You've confessed. You've promised not to do that anymore. We'll let it go. But other times, he has stepped up and really punished people harshly. The New Testament, unlike the Old Testament, is a book of love. It's a book of people who Jesus taught, who trained under him, and he learned how to address other people and to love them. We went from friction to friendship. We went from spite to harshness and forgiveness. This church is exactly a perfect example of that. This church is known by a lot of people because of you. You have made this church known in many places as a place you can come and be welcomed, We love to have you here. We can show you that we love you by just the way we act. We don't ignore new people. We love them. We would love to have them here. We'd love to have them all the time. And it's your love that makes this church work. And God blesses you for it every day. We sing this song, "This is the day." This is the day that God has given us. Let your light shine before men. Show it off to the world. Be proud of what we have. Don't be embarrassed to talk about your church. Be a spokesperson for God. Talk to them. Talk to people. Let them know that we have a wonderful church and we have empty seats. And we would love to have you here. If you're a spokesperson for God, He'll love you for it. And He'll return all the love that you give to Him. So let me just say how thankful I am to be a part of this church. You have made this church wonderful and perfect. God bless you all. Amen.